Hello, YouTube. Sir Dragon X here. Today, we're continuing episode number 2 of the Living in Mexico No Bull series. In the video coming up next. Welcome back to Retired Life in Mexico No Bull. Today, we continue episode number 2 of our Living in Mexico No Bull series. The goal of this series is to bring you people from all walks of life that are moving to Mexico. This individual that I interviewed today is a very unique individual and has a very unique story. He also has some very interesting insights into living in Mexico. So let's get on with the interview, shall we? Welcome back to Retired Life in Mexico. We're here with Pedram, who lives in Tijuana, and this is a continuation of our expat interview series. Thank you for coming on, Pedram. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Pleasure to be here.
Why don't we start out by Why don't you we just start out by you just giving us a little bit of a story about yourself and where you're from, where you've lived, and how you ended up in Tijuana, basically.
So I was born and raised in Iran, and I lived there for 17 years. And afterwards, after finishing high school, I basically studied abroad in Cyprus, which was like an island south of Turkey. Um, Eventually, I think around 2016, my brother and I both came to the U.S. to basically study here. Uh, and the way that I ended up here kind of wasn't exactly planned, but it just as the stories just happened and everything just came up. I ended up here, and uh, I've enjoyed it so far. I mean, it's been a journey, and it's been a good journey that I've very much enjoyed. So there was some process of we have to renew our visa and stuff. So Tijuana was the easiest option at the moment to choose for, waiting for your visa and everything. And theoretically, it was supposed to be a 2 week process, but due to the COVID and the shortage of staff in the embassy, it got postponed a couple times. So I ended up having to wait more, and I ended up, taking my courses online in my university. So um, I just ended up waiting here and staying here for now it's over a year. But it's been good. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's been
So,
I can't really
so,
complain.
so you're taking online courses at the university, but eventually you want to return back to the United States to take the courses uh,
Yes,
in, in person. So,
yes.
so you ended up in Tijuana, kind of. So what you're telling me, you kind of ended up there by mistake, but actually ended up liking it there.
Kind. I mean, the plan was to just renew my visa and just go back. The plan was that. But the fact that I stayed here was just it just happened. It wasn't necessarily my choice, but no, I mean I had to stay more, and it's been good. I mean I've enjoyed it very much.
So, I kind of say by mistake. It's not like by mistake because actually,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you said, it was
yeah,
COVID. And I do
yeah.
know that for a fact that the embassies are overwhelmed right now. Even getting your passport renewed is a real
Oh,
pain. And they're way behind. But
that's true.
um, I guess you kind of ended up there more by fate than it is by mistake. I guess
Exactly.
we might say. But
Yeah,
you said you've been there for a year and you said you really like it.
yeah.
Just give us a little bit of a, I have a lot of people that from every range, from people that retire in Mexico. Um, Now my channel is called Retired Life in Mexico, but it's not necessarily because it's for retired people. Actually, it's called Retired Life in Mexico because I retired. This is my retired life. Basically, I moved to Mexico, and one of the
Right.
things.
Right.
And one of the things that I decided to do is start a channel on living in Mexico, relocating to Mexico. And I also wanted to give people kind of an idea in this new series that I'm doing of what it's like to live in the different places in Mexico. And I just finished doing an interview with an individual out of Monterrey. I guess you know her because she lived in Tijuana also, but and recommended you to me. But the one thing that I like, I have a whole range of people that from young people that are working here. Actually, you're going to school here versus working. I also have people that are retired that watch my channel. But just why don't you give the audience a little bit of an idea what it's like to live in Tijuana? I know Tijuana is a little bit of a different animal than say San Miguel de Allende, Cancun, these other areas, Monterrey. Monterrey is still close to the border, but it's still 2.5 hours from the border. Um, but
Yes.
Tijuana is a very unique place. I did a lot of work in California also, back and forth. And I know that Tijuana is very, very unique in the way it is. Can you give the audience a little bit of an idea of what it's like to live in Tijuana, cost of living, what you enjoy about it, those types of things?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I think what you do is a great thing, and I absolutely admire what you do. It's a really good thing that nowadays, I mean, the advancement of technology is really helping it because one of the things that I think um, that currently is going on is that you can't really trust, social like media outlets basically in order to get your information. They could be biased. There's a lot of wrong information or wrong ideas that are being portrayed in different media outlets. And I think what you do is a great thing for getting proper information for in this case um, retiring in Mexico. And
Thanks.
from my perspective, I mean, initially when I came to Mexico, my perspective was completely different, based on the stuff that I'd heard before, based on stuff that I've seen before. So I had like a background image of Mexico in my mind when I entered here. So the first days, it wasn't very comfortable. I was like kind of like feeling um, kind of like um, not unsafe, but kind of on a. I was like kind of on an alert mode because I had certain uh, background thoughts about Mexico uh, until I got to kind of stay here, kind of like talk to people, kind of interact with people. And I think the fact that initially I knew no Spanish, like my Spanish levels were like almost zero. Um, so it made it even harder to kind of understand how everything works here. But as I got to go around, got to meet up with people, got to kind of get more familiar with everything, with the atmosphere over here, it started to change my thoughts, my all ideas that I had towards Mexico and towards Mexico Tijuana. And in a lot of cases, it made me feel good, made me feel welcome, made me feel comfortable, uh, um, especially in a cultural aspect. I mean, we could talk more about that later, but um, I bonded with the people, I bonded with the culture, I bonded with the environment over here, and it started to feel pleasant as the time passed. Um,
And
just
and
well,
and let me
speaking
guess
about
some.
Tijuana in general, I mean,
Yeah, no, I was going to say, let me guess
Yeah, go ahead.
let me guess
There's a little bit
the
of noise.
vision that,
Go ahead.
let me guess the vision you had of Mexico was drug cartels and very dangerous and violence everywhere. Is that what you're
Kinda. I
referring
mean,
to?
you know, exactly. Kinda. To be honest, kinda, because I lived in Fresno for 3.5 years, and in Fresno, if you know, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. One of the
Hmm.
like kind of like biggest Mexican drug cartels of California, the Fresno Bulldogs, is from Fresno, and it is basically based in Fresno. So over there, you can't say like it's a safe city. Like you have to have certain kind of considerations for like going out and stuff. So in my mind, like Mexico was like a worst version of that, like a more extreme version of that. So I came with this kind of background. Um, but as you know get comfortable in a place, as you get settled in a place, you learn about it, and your vision completely changes. And I think that's true in every aspect. Once you travel, once you go and see everything in person, it changes your vision towards everything. Uh,
And when you moved there, you started finding out that it was a little bit different.
yeah.
And you were saying you talked about adapting to the culture there. Um, and also, Tijuana is a little bit different in the sense that probably more people spoke English
Yeah.
than as you move further into the interior. So that might have helped you a little bit, but how? Why don't you go into a little bit about adapting to the culture and what you discovered in adapting to that culture, about the Mexican people, about living in Mexico and that type of thing.
Um, Sure. So, in when I was in Fresno, one of my best friends, she's also Mexican, or let's say Chicana. I think there's a correct word. One of my best friends was Mexican, and like all the Mexicans in the U.S. also don't really encourage you towards, don't really encourage that proper image that towards Mexico. So in Tijuana, like you said, there's a lot of people that speak English. There's a lot of people that, come on a regular basis to Tijuana from, they're working in San Diego or in, Chula Vista, and they come over here on a regular basis. So it's not like a completely different atmosphere, like at once. Um, but still, like the thing that really struck me towards the Mexican culture was, as an Iranian person, we're family oriented people. So that thing was one of the things that kind of um, really seemed attractive to me. That people love their families, they're very family oriented, and they're good people. Like in general, when you go to places, for example, that was actually one of the topics that I spoke. I spoke with one of my friends before. Um, Over here, when you talk to people, they're just kind, and it's just how they are. But one of the things that I see, I feel like it's different with the U.S., for example, is that people are just kind. People are kind to you not because it is work protocol, just because they're nice, and
Mhm.
that kind of like I felt it right away. I felt it like exactly when I came here. I could sense that right away, and it was very attractive to me. I mean, I was very moved by that, and the the atmosphere is a welcoming atmosphere. So I felt comfortable here as an outsider, as a person who doesn't properly speaks Spanish. I felt comfortable. I didn't feel like homesick or anything, and it was an atmosphere that I could feel okay. I'm going to be here for a while, and I could feel comfortable. I could feel settled.
And you said you were living in Fresno before that, and
Yes.
and I guess you had studied and then you were saying that, I think you said you were studying, and then now that you're going to go to a different school, you have to wait for your other visa to come through. But
Yes.
as far as the cost of living in Fresno and living in Tijuana, did you see a big difference? Because I do know that Tijuana, sometimes because it's on the border,
Yeah.
rents can be comparable to California. But I also know that a lot of people actually live in Tijuana because they can't afford to live in California and they cross every day and go to work. What do you find? I mean, what's your experience as far as the cost of living, having lived in Fresno while you were a student? And being an online student now, I think you had mentioned you're taking some online classes now. Being an online student living in Tijuana, what did you find that there was a big difference in as far as financial affordability?
I mean, Fresno, in comparison to, for example, bigger cities in California, is a cheaper city. So, like if you live in San Diego, your costs are going to be like much much higher. But as far as affordability of like staying in renting places and stuff, um, I have certain friends that work in that basically are from San Diego, and they work there, but they live here basically. They live here and they cross the border every day. And I mean the costs are, I mean, extremely cheaper. Even though, like you mentioned, I think Tijuana, because of being a border city, I think is much much more expensive than other cities. For example, in comparison to cities that are like further, further towards the border. But no, in general, the costs are, I mean, considerably lower over here. I mean, certain things are similar. I think the gas price is almost similar to the U.S., or certain things are the same. But I think the cost of living, the cost of like renting places and stuff, that is, I think, is like remarkably lower over here. Like the place that I'm living right now is an Airbnb. I haven't rented a place because I stayed when I came here. I stayed here, and I haven't really felt like I want to go out and rent places. This place that I'm living right now, I it cost me about $400 a month. So it's almost the same as what I pay in Fresno for our apartment. Almost the same as that, and the other costs are pretty much similar. I mean, the groceries and stuff seem almost similar. Sometimes some stuff are cheaper, some stuff are more expensive, but yeah, that's basically how it is.
And have you found any kind of obstacles other than what you were talking about when you first got there? Now that you've lived there for a year, do you find that you still have obstacles there in Mexico? That's the first question I'm going to ask. And then the second question that I'm going to ask that's very curious because I know that the goal is to go back to the United States and finish off your degree. But well, my second question is more geared to having lived in Tijuana and having lived there for a year or so, would you actually consider moving to Mexico later on in life after you finish all of your stuff?
Okay, these are good questions. Um, like I mentioned before, when I came here, my ideas were completely different. So it was completely a different image that I experienced here. And uh, to be honest, as far as obstacles go, at the moment, the only obstacle that I find is the language barrier. But I mean, at the moment, I can talk a little bit of Spanish. I can't speak fluently, but I've been here for almost a year, and I've picked some stuff, so I can have a normal conversation. But it's not, fluent yet. But it will go there. If I could speak fluent Spanish and I didn't have any problem with that, I really don't see any obstacles for living here because the atmosphere for me, this atmosphere is a comfortable atmosphere. And as far as living goes, that's a good question because depends what your expectations are for living. What kind of life do you expect to have? um, as far as moving it. But I could see myself moving in here in the future, but depends on the expectations that I would have, because there are certain things that you have to consider living in Mexico. There are certain things that you may need to bring into account if you want to move in and live in here. Um, there are certain things that might feel uncomfortable for certain people. Certain things might uh, some people might not really get bothered with those things. So it depends on what you expect for your life if you want to move in here. But I could see myself feeling pretty comfortable here, and I have big plans on visiting like other places here. So I'm definitely coming back. I'm definitely having big plans over here. But as far as living, I'm still not sure.
Yeah, but as far as I guess the point I was trying to make is, you're young and actually what you're studying is, I think you said to physician's assistant. We
Yes.
discussed this before the interview, but
Yeah.
and in the United States, that might be a great fruitful career. But I guess maybe what I was getting a little bit more down to is and you kind of answered the question. Your expectations might be that, hey, I want to
Yeah.
I want to go back down there,
Yeah.
but I would say something like, hey, you know what? I've already done my career, and I want to retire, and that I guess I was geared more towards that,
Okay.
or or you know. Would you be interested in like even moving back to Mexico? The other question that I had, since you're studying to be a PA, have you had any experience with the medical care there in Mexico at all?
Okay, so let's go with the first question. Yeah, like as far as retiring after you're done with everything. I mean, if for an atmosphere of comfort, for like um, for from that perspective, I think yeah, I could definitely see myself living in Mexico. It's a uh, like I said, it was different than what I thought in the past, and it's a good um, atmosphere. And I think uh, from that perspective, sure. I mean, I could see myself, like retiring basically here, like you said. And as far as medical, you know, um, as far as like dealing with the health department and that kind of stuff, I haven't really like basically encountered the hospitals or the medical system here that much, apart from going for like a simple flu or something. But what I've heard, even in the past, was that like in the past, um, before deciding to follow my path towards physician assistant, I was thinking I want to be a medical doctor. So that was initially what I wanted to follow. And then later on, I figured, okay, no, this is what I want to be. I want that liberty of a physician assistant. Um, and one of the things that a lot of people talk about, in regards to medical school, is going to Mexico or like basically this kind of schools that are in Mexico for medical school, and that was actually one of my options in the past. There was a talk about this. When I came here, I figured a little bit more. I like dug a little bit deeper in that to get some more information in this, and there are good medical schools here. The schools, even in Tijuana, there are good schools for medical career that you could follow, and in a financial way, it would make a huge difference considering studying in the U.S. And yeah, that was my take on on medical field basically in Mexico.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I bring that up is I was actually treated for cancer here in Mexico,
Oh
in
wow.
Monterrey. I got head and neck cancer. I actually did a video on it, and you know, there's this. We were talking about image of Mexico. There's this image of this third world country, and the medical care, and I actually got better care here in Mexico than I would have in the United States. Actually, my insurance was still fighting the doctors 3 months later, and I was already undergoing treatment. while the insurance companies were trying to settle it out in the United States with my doctors. Um, and I actually got my treatment done a lot quicker. They found my problem a lot quicker. And also, you mentioned medical school, since we want to mention that, or you mentioned that
Yeah,
you looked into those options. Um,
yeah,
Here in Mexico, you don't go get your 4 year degree. You go straight into medical school instead of getting a
yeah,
4 year degree and then having to go to medical school.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of people come. There's a lot of schools that cater to international students. There are also even, I believe, there's a couple of schools that are even associated with medical schools back in the United States, where you do your medical school here and you go back and do your residency over there.
wow,
Um, and it's actually affordable. You don't come out owing $500,000
exactly.
compared to the United States. So it's interesting that you bring that up, that you looked into the medical schools there.
Yeah,
Um, and that's one of the reasons why I asked the question, because
yeah, yeah,
most
of
people,
course.
and one of the things that I also noticed too, and that's why I asked if you had any experience in being treated there, is that doctors there seem to be a little here, not there, here in Mexico,
Yeah,
actually happen to be a little bit more. Um, they don't treat you so much as a number; they treat you more like a person. Um,
yeah.
and that's what I
I mean,
noticed
that's about
with my med.
everything, you know. Yeah, in the middle of your talking, it's about every. I mean, that was one of the things that I noticed immediately. You know, everywhere that you go, if somebody's nice to you, it's not like a work protocol. It's just because they're nice. I mean,
And
that's what I noticed. For example, you go to a fast food chain in. I mean, I don't want to generalize. I don't want to say everything is like that in the U.S. Right? I don't want to like put any bad faces on anybody. But in all the places that you go, and for example, you go to a fast food chain or to a restaurant or whatever, if the waiter is nice to you, because he has to be nice to you, because like they have to be nice. I mean, work protocol. But over here, no, if somebody's nice to you, it's just they are nice. That's how they are.
and then the other thing that I always bring up, like you were talking about not having a very good grasp for the Spanish language because
Yeah,
but you speak a couple of words here and there, or you can have conversations. But um, I'm going to ask you this, and I've noticed this. I speak Spanish, so I don't have as much of a problem. But my Spanish is very broken because, and then I've said this in the last, I always say this. My Spanish is very broken because I grew up on the South Texas border, so it's kind of a combination of English and Spanish. Um, so, and then, like I said, it's kind of a chopped up Spanish where sometimes we don't. Uh, Conjugate verbs correctly and everything else. So sometimes
yeah,
when I'm talking to somebody, even in Spanish, knowing the language, um, they're looking at me, of course, like instead of saying, "Hey, are we going to go somewhere?" I'm saying, "I'm going to go somewhere," or instead of me saying, "Am I going to go somewhere?" I say, "We're going to go," but they
uh,
somehow understand you, or they don't
yeah,
they don't put you down because you didn't say it
yes.
right, or that you don't know that, or that you at least tried. Do you find that with your English and trying to speak, or if you speak half English, or you throw in a Spanish word there and here and there, that the people appreciate the fact that you're trying?
Exactly. I mean, the first days, like I had to make sure that everybody knew that okay, like I don't know Spanish very well. Like when I would get into the Uber or like get into places, I would tell them like like I'm learning Spanish, like estoy aprendiendo español, like I would tell them like that. So they would like admire that. They would admire that. Okay, you're learning Spanish. You're here. You're trying to talk the language. And the lady that is hosting our place, she's an elderly lady, and I don't know, she could understand you like very well. Like she would just look at you and like if you try to say something like half of it in English, half of it in Spanish, she would exactly know what you're trying to say. So people actually do understand what you're trying to do or trying to say, and they help you. They always help you, and yeah, that was very very good. I mean, I really don't want to bash anybody. I don't really want to bash anything or like generalize anything, but in comparison, for example, to certain things that you experiencing other places. For example, in the U.S., sometimes people are a little bit um, like not patient with you if you can't speak the English properly. Like I've seen examples that like somebody's speaking broken English and they tell him like um, bring somebody who can speak English, bring somebody who can speak properly. But over here, that's not the case at all. I mean, theoretically, they could do the same. Theoretically, they could ask you, okay, uh, like you are here in Mexico, you have to speak Spanish or do nothing. Like, but there's no such scenarios here. If you are, not speaking the language properly, they still admire that you're trying. They still admire that you are here. They still admire that you're trying to speak their language. They're very very supportive about it. There's no negative aspect of it for you. They're supportive. They have a positive view towards you trying to speak their language. So this is just these simple things are what make you feel comfortable in a society in an atmosphere, and that's what makes you feel settled. What makes you feel comfortable, in a society. And I think that was one of the first things that I felt, and yeah, it still is one of the things that I really like about here.
Awesome, awesome. So, um, I think I like to keep these to about 30 minutes, and I think we've pretty much discussed everything. Is there anything that you'd like to add about living in Tijuana before we close this up?
Uh, in general, I think what I'm trying to say, what I would want to say is that, you know, uh, I think I mean I am guilty of it myself too. It's always better, to not let our what we hear to change our view towards something, not to generalize everything until we experience it ourselves. A lot of things that we think, a lot of the ideas that we have towards certain people, towards certain locations, towards a lot of things, and I myself am guilty of that, is based on wrong information. And I think what we could close this with is that we would better broaden our vision towards stuff, and like try to look things a little bit different, and not assume negative stuff towards whatever that we hear immediately until we go there, we experience it ourselves, and we see it and feel it, in person.
And I
So I
totally
think, yeah,
agree. I totally agree with you, and it's something that you just have to experience. And I think
exactly.
one of the things that I stress with everybody, and I don't want to get on a rant here, but one of the things that I stress with coming and moving here to Mexico is it's a change. I'm not gonna lie, and I was raised in the United States, so I had certain well, I didn't have as many misconceptions because I worked very extensively in Latin America when I was working. So you know, the Latin culture, period. If you go anywhere in Latin America, I did 3 years in Brazil, for example, and
Wow.
uh, the Portuguese is the language there. I had to learn really quick, and one of the things that got me 1,000 miles on. I was doing diplomatic work there, and what got me in the door a lot of times was just the fact that I tried to speak Portuguese. Many times, even the officials there would tell me, "Don't worry, we speak Spanish because we're right next to Argentina and Uruguay and everything else. So or we can even speak English because I like to practice my English." And I always used to say, no, we're going to do the meeting in Portuguese. I have an interpreter here. If I can't understand you, um, or I can't speak it, or just excuse me, or we'd make jokes because I said something wrong. But actually, it became an actual diplomatic tool for me. Just attempting to speak the language, and
Exactly.
I think you make a very good point about not having misconceptions of a place. Um, there's a lot of misconceptions even in Mexico about even uh, we were talking about the misconception that it's dangerous and everything else.
Yeah,
What I always say is everywhere's dangerous. I mean,
that's true. Exactly.
You go to Fresno, California, and I can tell you, and I've worked in Fresno, California on several assignments,
Exactly.
and it's,
That's the thing.
but at the same time, there's also a lot of misconceptions of. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in immigration right now that, you know. Mexican immigration is going to give you 180 days. Don't worry about it on your FMM. But so there's a lot of misconceptions that go on both sides of the fence, everywhere
That's
from.
true.
And I think you're very true and very right in saying that you need to do your research and have that experience and experience living here in Mexico to actually see what it's like. And one of the things that I do even say is come live here for years, come live here for 6 months or whatever, and see what it's like before you make a final decision. Or if you're bent that you're going to move to Mexico, move to different places or try to, get
Right.
once you get your residency, try different places out and end up in a place that you love, not because it's more inexpensive or whatever. But you bring up a good point about
Thank
not having misconceptions, and I even see that, and I know you're not, like you said, you don't want to bash the United States or bash anywhere, and neither do I. I mean, I come from I did 30 years of service
Yeah.
to the government, but we do sometimes in the United States have this tendency to judge and and you know um, when you experience what you've experienced, I think you start to learn that, well, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental.
Exactly.
But thank you for your time, and I really
Of course.
appreciate it.
Of course.
And it was a pleasure talking to you,
Same
and
here.
and thank you for being a guest on our show.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
I hope you enjoyed episode number 2 of our Living in Mexico No Bull series. We have a lot more to come with people from all walks of life. So don't forget to subscribe and see you soon.